And we're live. Diego, thank you so much for taking the time out of your extremely busy day. And to have your lovely team here as well. I appreciate you guys making the trek out to my new studio. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us. It's amazing, and your setup is great. And I love the walk up. As you know, we're a 4-story walk up, so I feel right at home.
Only one story here.
I know, but a long one.
Yeah, and the legs don't burn too bad though. No, it's also like very like like the New York kind of like. Well, this is also Brooklyn. Yeah. The industrial vibe. It's you never know where you're going, then you go into a place that looks very different.
Well, that's what New York is about, right?
It's beautiful.
The opportunities is opening a door and never knowing what's behind.
Exactly. I told you a few seconds ago, there's a little something that the world doesn't know about you from what's already out there.
And I was thinking, and mainly it's I hate cilantro, which is not very interesting. I really despise cilantro.
Wait, why do you hate cilantro so much?
People think like, oh, does it taste like soap? No, it just tastes like someone ate it and already put it on my plate.
Interesting. What about scallions?
I love scallions.
Wait, so it's just the cilantro that bothers you?
And it's the only thing I don't eat. Like I don't have any allergies. I don't have anything. I just hate cilantro.
Wait, hold on. So if there's like a really good dish, what's a good dish you like?
Tacos. Let's just use tacos.
Oh.
If it has cilantro, I won't eat it. Or like rice with cilantro, and people's like, oh, it's in there. You can't taste it.
No chance.
Oh, I can smell it.
Oh, when was the last time you had cilantro?
On a rice the other day, actually, and they were like, no, it doesn't have cilantro. I'm like, oh, I'm telling you it does. Like, this is not a debate.
Does it get you like nauseous?
No, it just tastes like someone already ate it and put it on my plate.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
You always been like had this.
Yes.
It's the only thing.
The only thing. I like any kind of food. I've tried a lot of things. It doesn't matter. Just cilantro won't. It just won't.
It just won't cut it.
It just won't cut it. I mean, there's other things like mint I find disappointing.
Oh, so okay, no. So you have a trend here.
No. I find it disappointing, but I'll eat it. I love a mojito. I like mint. It's just I find it like overused and a little disappointing.
I think you just have something against the little green
herbs.
Like what about like oregano on a pizza?
Oh, I love oregano. Oregano, I think is great.
You're interesting. That's mysterious.
But my answer would be I'm a terrible basketball player.
Oh yeah, that's your tummy. So like, how bad are we talking?
We're talking. I can run, I can dribble. The shooting part.
Wait, but what happens when what about like a good little layup?
Yeah, I'll be there for like defense, point guard, that kind of thing. But then
So it's just you just can't.
I'm more of a real football kind of guy.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're not going to talk about that. It's Spanish. We all know what
oh
happened
wait,
yesterday, so
wait! I don't want to. Oh my god!
Yeah,
I don't want to trigger you with that, but that was bad.
That was bad.
I'm not gonna lie, y'all can't shoot like penalties for shit. I mean, that was.
And it didn't help when our trainer said, "No, we practice 1,000 penalties."
Wait.
I'm like, with what? Like, what?
Wait, can we talk about this real quick? They were like, I was talking about this with my friend yesterday. They were not even hitting the striking. They were just like doing those little dinks to the. You know what? But I think they're also like haunted from. That's how the last World Cup ended for you guys.
Yes. And also, I was on a plane, which is not a surprise, but I was reading it because they didn't have live TV. Oh. So I was on a plane. I woke up at 4 a.m. in LA, and I got on the plane at whatever it was, 5:30, and I'm on this plane trying to read the live action, and I was like,
"You see, miss."
Yeah, I was like, oh, no. I was like, I couldn't. It was very, very frustrating.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it's okay. The good thing is there's another World Cup in 4 years.
Yes, and we won one.
I don't want to like get in your face about it, but I'm French.
Yes.
So I can't relate to the struggle that you're going through right now because we're like really good.
Now, we were doing so well.
Okay, so other than the basketball though, so you're good at soccer, football.
Yes. Yes.
It's disrespectful to say soccer too.
Well, it's also it makes no sense.
No, it really doesn't.
Because it actually is a foot and a ball.
Yeah.
Football, American football, which I love, by the way. The more time I go into it, the more I love it. I really, really like watching football. But there's no foot, basically, and there is no ball.
Just a little cheeky kick every so often.
Every so often, but there's definitely no ball. The ball is not round.
Well, that's true. Wait, so what do you call it?
It's a sphere, isn't it?
Foot sphere, yeah. I don't know. We can have that debate later. But I So real quick, I'm actually curious because when I was listening to a bunch of different interviews and a little research before, but I think the one thing I couldn't really figure out is how long have you been? So you grew up in Spain.
Yep.
From born until what age?
The age of 12, I go to boarding school in England.
Okay.
And then I really tried. My mother really wanted me to be what they would consider a normal job kind of thing. So I always wanted to act, work in film. I was that kid in drama school, plays, that whole thing. I did a small TV show. And she was like, no, that's just a hobby. Like, that's not what you do for a living. And so I went to boarding school, and then I did college or university. I did economics and drama at the same time on my spare time. And then I moved I tried to work in a bank, and then I worked in a hedge fund in Switzerland, in Zurich. And I was like, I just can't do it. Yeah. There was just I wasn't, talk about just not being happy. It's just like, I couldn't do it.
What about it that you couldn't do? You just...
The zero creativity. It's just like when that's in you, and in some ways it has to be in you, because otherwise you wouldn't be doing this. It just kills. It really kills. It slowly dims your light until you shut off.
What age did you know that you had that creative spirit?
Well, I just knew I didn't feel anywhere else the way I felt on a stage, and it wasn't even like The Shining or anything like that. It was more about the grounding. I felt grounded. Like, when you get into your own bed and you've been in like a bunch of hotels, and then you land in your own bed and you're like, that feeling of like, everything about me is just like kind of grounded. That's how I feel on a stage, on a set. And I only felt it there. And now I feel it anywhere that I'm creative, where, whether I'm with B designing something, or I'm working or directing or whatever it is. Like, when I'm creative like that, I feel that same way.
Did you know, like, or I guess for now, obviously, since you're so busy with Lobos, does part of you, I know you, and we'll talk about some of your acting as well, do you miss being able to devote most of your time to acting, or is because you still have that creative outlet now?
So it's definitely, I feel a lot of the creative is amazing. A lot of it is a little bit like methadone, so it's not the actual hit, but it does a good job, I guess. No, I haven't tried any of them, but I'm just guessing by what people say. But it feels a little bit like that. I do miss it in some way, or some mornings, but this is a great ride, and this is the ride now, right? So I think there's a time for everything, and this is the one I need to write right now.
Have you had a second to kind of process the last few years and all of the growth? I mean, obviously you're so busy, you're traveling right, left, and center. But have you ever had a second to be in the comforts of your own bed and thinking like, wow, this has been quite a journey?
There's been a few moments when we opened Canada. There was a moment that LeBron and I looked at each other, and we were like, we were giving a speech and and that's common. That's what you do, right? So you're in the wheel and that kind of thing. And then we both finished and said, we're in Canada. And like, there was a weird moment.
We're in Canada?
We were in Toronto.
Okay.
But like, we just launched Canada, and it was this whole event, and it was beautiful, and our Canadian partners were doing great. It was just an amazing, but there was a moment and it felt it was just me and him in the room. Like, it was just, and we both looked at each other and went, we are in, like, I mean? Like, I didn't have that realization moment until like, oh fuck, we're in Canada. You know what I mean?
So how many countries are you guys in right now?
So we're in the U.S., 40 states in the U.S.
Wow.
We're actually opening Hawaii now on the 16th. We're in Canada. We just opened Dubai. Wow. Which is an interesting one. Mexico, and a little bit of the Caribbean islands.
Wow. I have a question about that, kind of talking about that moment with LeBron, and obviously it's well known that he's one of the big investors. For you also, and I don't know how much of a basketball fan you are in general, but I'm sure that moment, not only was it like, oh, we're in Canada, but like, you're with LeBron, who's not a small figure, and it's you and him having that conversation. That must also, in a weird way, be like, I don't know, for me, I think it would probably be quite surreal.
I think the surrealness of like LeBron or Drake or that event that we had came more with the photos.
Right.
I think when we did a video and we kind of released it, LeBron's one of those guys that he is such a professional, such a great guy. He makes you forget who he is,
Right.
especially when you're like in an intimate setting. So
Right.
it's when you take a step back,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh no, like you are literally the biggest, figure of our generation.
Right.
I mean, like, but it takes that step out, and it's thanks to him and how humble he is and how just professional and great guy.
What are some of those conversations, I guess, from a business standpoint? Obviously, you can't share all the details, but like where you notice that, okay, he's not just this superhuman athlete, he's also an incredible businessman, and some of those perhaps decisions that you guys took together with Dia or whoever it must have been. I'm curious about what those conversations and the dialogue looks like when you're dealing with figures like that in a business setting.
Well, in the dialogue, in the ongoing, for him, it's all about authenticity and realness. That's always what it comes down again to. Like, is it there? Is it authentic? Is it real? That's always the question that he asked me.
Right.
When I started realizing was, so he called me. He's like, hey, I heard you're doing this. Is it any good? And I was like, it was actually funny. So I was at Madison Square Park. I'll remember exactly where I was. And my phone, and it was an Ohio number. I was like, that's so weird. And I pick it up, and he's just so humble. He goes, hey, Diego. I was like, yeah. He goes, this is LeBron James. Do you remember me?
Nah, I've never heard of you.
Like, James. No. And of course. And he's like, oh, I heard you're doing this thing. Is it any good? Anyway, we got to get into your point of, what you were asking. I got to where we were going to try the tequila. He had prepared the whole competition.
Oh, so he had a competition.
He had everything that's in the market that he drank, whether he liked it or not, on ice, glasses, everything was set up.
How many different?
It was like 6. And I was not nervous at all, because it was like, I created this brand in my kitchen to my palate. I was like, I really feel passionate about this, right? I've gone through 3 years of this, 326 iterations. I found the diary the other day. And so I didn't feel nervous at all. And even though it's LeBron and Maverick and that kind of thing, and Paul Walker, I was like, they're great guys, you know what I mean? So if they get it, they get it. If they don't, they don't.
But part of you, and that's why I'm interested, like, do you not feel like, because I started this in my kitchen, I'm so close to at least like LeBron, for example? And I think that the being so close feeling is always like, especially in acting, right? When you're about to get a role, whatever, there's like it's like, okay, I won't get excited, but like, holy fuck, what if I get him?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't because, and I can tell you how everything that went, but he has all the competition, and I wasn't nervous until I saw the competition. I was like, oh, this is a palate thing. Like, he could hate it.
Right.
I was like, he could literally say, this is garbage.
This is trash.
Get the fuck out. You know what I mean? I was like, we can have dinner, but this that you made is trash. And to your point of like, I'm so close to it, that would have hurt. That would have, and I still like going into that, even when he literally said, and he's spoken about it, this is the best fucking tequila I've ever tried. And I remember perfect when it happened. He was like, Maverick, where the fuck is Maverick? And I was like, Maverick has to try this. And then it just kind of snowballed into what it is. And the next day, so I stayed with them. And then the next day, he was like, okay, so we're doing this, And I was like, okay. So I was like, so for us, right? Like, this is because he's so his friends and that kind of thing. So I was like, oh, this is just my same mentality of like, for my friends, but, we're bringing in his friends.
Right.
And it's like, oh no. We're taking over the world. He literally said those words.
So your plan was never. So once, like, what did you, when he said it's for us, and then he says we're taking over the world, what did you think that would look like?
I mean, I never what it is now. I mean, I've dreamt about it, but you never think it will happen, right? Yeah. So you always think it's a possibility, but I even now, I mean, we're still growing, and I'm very, very blessed, and it's definitely not time to sleep in the trophy case, but I would have never dreamt that. Not even about the numbers of the size, but even like the great team, like, we're a good number of team. There's so many great things that have happened around it. That is, to your point, I would have never dreamt of it.
And how did you guys kind of go about, because I think when I think of your brand, I think it's obviously the product has to be first and foremost.
Yep.
Delicious.
Yep.
But then I think you guys are and I don't know if this is because of some of the figures that are linked to it, but I think also just when I look at, you know, your social media and your great PR team and stuff like that, it's you guys are building truly a brand, not just a tequila. What was that process and that thinking behind it?
It was never meant to be.
I see.
So when I designed everything about it, and I spent 3 years, because I had all the time in the world. I had no investors, it was just me. Like I didn't need to report to anyone, right. So it just happened when it happened. And it was never meant to be another thing, so it had to stand by itself. So this is why we're not a celebrity brand. This is why we don't have any additives. This is why we're creating everything. And when this amazing people come on board, they come on board to help in themselves, to help themselves, right? Because they are investors. They have their own money riding on this thing. I never gave a dime for anyone for free. And so they are as invested as they am in everything they do.
Right.
So they are the best, not just on a court, not just in a movie set, not just in a business room. They're everywhere because they push harder.
You know, it's funny. The first, I guess, interaction that I had with Lobos, I was with a friend of mine. He's actually the CEO of this company called The Zone. They're this startup for student athletes and wellness and stuff like that. And we were at a restaurant together, and he was looking at the tequila or at the drinks menu, and he picked out Lobos, and he's like, every time I go into a restaurant that they have Lobos, I make sure to order it. And that was my first kind of interaction. I was like, oh, it's Lobos. He was like, and he was telling me obviously like LeBron, Draymond, all that stuff. He's like, I just think that this company, you know, obviously I'm gonna talk about the people that make up this company, but I thought it was kind of beautiful to hear him authentically, especially because I didn't know really at the time what Lobos was, because I'm not a huge drinker, he just liked what you guys stand for. And I mean, he loves tequila, but he also loves what you guys stand for. And I think that, you know, when I think about how companies grow, it's really that. And I think you guys have done that to a T, you know?
Well, you have to, and there's no other way. And the blessing and the curse of having these investors is they know very good what they're doing.
Right.
Meaning you can't just wing it, you know, and they're not. And the reality is a lot of these guys, even if we sell for incredible amount of money, oh, this company goes amazing and that kind of thing, is not really going to change their lives. It might change mine, but it won't change theirs, you know? And so for them, what really matters is everything else.
Right.
So for what them, it really matters is their morals, is the standards that they are, the qualities they are, all those other things that make what a true brand is. And hopefully this brand will outrun all of us.
So I was listening to try to understand a little bit more about the process of tequila making, and I'll be honest, I'm a real dummy still. And so I guess for my listeners, even though as well, I'm sure whenever you have moments, just educate us on exactly the process. But in that, I know you went through, as you just said, 326 iterations. Describe a little bit about what that looks like when you're going through 326 iterations, and how is each iteration different in terms of process?
So there's, to the point of how you get tequila. Tequila, you get a plant. It happens to be a cactus, happens to be blue weber agave. And then from that plant, you have to cook it, right? So that's the first thing that you do, right? The selection of the plant, right? So where the plant comes from determines sugar intakes, size, water, all this kind of thing. So once you identify that, then you're cooking it, which cooking it in tequila world, really all you're doing it is to make this like pineapple looking thing softer so you can squeeze it and the liquid will come out. All right. So therefore you start having to do that kind of work. Then you go into fermentation with that liquid. How you ferment it. Again, more iterations, right? Is it a 3-day fermentation? Is it 2 days? Is it a 1?
What's the difference, like, say, between a 3 and a 1 day?
Fermentation, basically what happens is the sugars in the plant, and this happens with any alcohol that is made out of, comes from a fermentation level, the sugar becomes alcohol. And that it's mainly done by its own yeast happening and just science being science. We can really go into the chemistry, but there's no need. So if you accelerate that, means the sugars tend to be sharper. The ways to accelerate is by giving it heat. So what you're going to get into a lot of and obviously the more time is spent in the tank, the more expensive it is. Because it's not just sitting there, it's occupying space. because you're not doing another thing. So there's the opportunity cost. So it just becomes that kind of thing.
So where were you going through these different, when you were doing these different iterations, where's the plant or the place that this takes place physically?
It's a distillery around this Jalisco, which is our distillery. And then you start doing is like, okay, I think the sugars are not coming through. So therefore you work with a master distiller and he goes, oh, I think it's because we did this. I was like, all right, okay. And then you're like, okay, I think this is the way we like fermentation. And then you go into aging. He goes, okay, so our Hoven, in our case, is 3 months in American oak, and then we do our sherry finish, which is what makes Lobos special, right? So it's like how much in the American oak, and then how much in the sherry. So you start seeing all this weird variables that happens, and then I would go down, he would have 20 samples of different things, and he will have written what he did in each sample, and we would be like, I like this about this one. I like this about this one. And then you carry on trying.
When you describe some of these different flavors, if you will, to people that haven't experienced them, how do you describe them verbally? I'm curious.
I'm very visual. So it goes back to what I hopefully, which is exactly, my creative side. So, and then it's also there's something about the things need to be what they need to be. Meaning, I have a problem with a lot of this quote unquote more American side tequilas. They're just too sweet, or they have no soul. Like, I don't know, do you drink wine at all?
Not a lot. Not
sports.
A huge drinker in general.
Let's go to sports.
Okay.
Lakers played a certain way.
Yeah.
The Heat played in a certain way.
Right.
And it's very different.
Right.
So when you go and see the Heat play, you want the Heat to play like the Heat.
Right.
And if for whatever reason is changing, you're like, oh, I didn't come to see a 4 or 5 pass situation or the Warriors. Like, I came here to see 3-pointers from the paint. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I came here to see. And then when you don't see that, you're like, but that's kind of weird. So tequila in itself, a Blanco tequila, a Joven tequila, in my mind, there's something that is authentic. And when you vary from that, you have to vary enough without forgetting what it is.
And now we're just going to take a quick break to talk to you about Manscaped. It's never too early or too late to play holiday music, and it's never too early and definitely never too late to start thinking about gifts, whether it's for a friend or the friend in your pants. You can make this a season to be jolly with Manscaped. Now look, you might be listening or watching this and Christmas might have just passed, it might be right before New Year, after New Year, whatever. You can always get people gifts. Like, it's not just Christmas, right? Like, Valentine's Day is in like a month. In between that, what kind of holidays are coming up? My birthday? Nobody cares about that, but you know what I mean. It's never, ever too late. And I'll be honest, like, Manscaped has supported me over the years. And I'm not just saying this, like, I love their grooming tools. Now, it sounds like a silly thing to say, but you realize how important it is when the tools are bad. But when you have these kinds of tools, like, it's a seamless process, man. You're knocking out the hairs right and left like it's nothing. Sorry if that was a little too graphic, but you get the point. But Manscaped has just come out with their Platinum Package 4.0, which is the one-stop shop for the man who deserves it all. The Platinum Package has each product ranging from its best-selling Performance Package Plus Ultra Premium Body Wash to the Ultra Premium 2-in-1 Shampoo and Conditioner and Ultra Premium Deodorant. They also have their Lawn Mower Now 4.0, which is their revolutionary trimmer that I was just telling you about, as well as their Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer, which all feature proprietary advanced skin-safe technology to protect all of your delicacies. Now, this Weed Whacker nose thing, I didn't even know like a Weed Whacker existed or like a nose trimmer existed, right? And I used it, and honestly, A, it was kind of like a little massage in the nose, which is kind of cool. And B, like, I don't do this frequently, but sometimes if you go right up to the mirror, you like see all of the imperfections on your face. And then like if there's like a tiny nose hair here or there, you just get it right there with the Weed Whacker nose trimmer. So trust me, it's worth it. So as I was saying, all of Manscaped's shower gear is sulfate-free, vegan, and made to have your skin feeling hydrated and smelling fresh. So if you're vegan, like you're probably jumping out of your seat right now. I don't know. I just feel like vegans do that. Anyways, the Platinum Package 4.0 is sitting under the tree, or if it's past Christmas, it's sitting on a shelf ready to be bought and is guaranteed to put anybody in the best mood possible. So go right now and get 20% off and free shipping with the code WTG at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use that promo code WTG. Go check it out today. Now let's get back into it. So other than the like what it has to be at its core, then how do you kind of, I guess, like describe some of the tastes of Lobos in comparison to what else is on the market, other than the American ones being a little too sweet?
So, for example, if you take our Hoven, for me, it tastes, when you open that cook agave oven,
right?
Because there's no fire, so there's a lot of like this vapor. It tastes exactly how that smells,
right? Which
is just raw cooked agave. So that would be my primary note, which is why the bottle is blue, or the label is blue, because it's that to represent that blue Weber agave. Other tequilas out there, very, very popular, taste just like pure vanilla extract with a little bit of kick of tequila in the end. So for me, that doesn't match up.
Did you always love tequila first, or do you ever drink vodka?
I did, yeah. My passion for tequila comes, and talking about things that I don't really speak about, it comes because America has terrible ice.
Wait, say more. As opposed to like
so
Spanish ice is better.
If you drink a good gin and tonic, if you drink a good vodka and soda, you need good ice.
Right, of course.
So the mix stays and doesn't water down. Most American clubs or bars, especially when I came here, which is about 15 years ago, have the like crushed ice.
Oh no, that's disgusting. Because then it gets slushy.
That's my point.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So
you need like the nice little
squares. So I was like, what can I drink? I couldn't afford nice whiskeys because I was pretty broke back then. So I was like, what can I drink that I can drink with no ice, no mixer, and will do the job?
So you're like, let me do it myself.
So I'm like, tequila. So I've been drinking tequila for maybe 15 years because of that.
But your family's also heavily involved.
Yeah, but they do. So I have nothing to do with their business. But they do a lot of sherries, finos, some spirits, and a little bit of Spanish vodka, a lot of gin, and that kind of thing. But I have nothing to do with it.
Did you learn anything about seeing them, at least in that industry, that has then carried over into your work now?
Which is funny because I never wanted to be part of it.
Right.
Like I had zero desire, mainly because it's a family business, which is like a big my family's part of a bunch of other, like, so it's like a ground for many, many generations and this whole thing. So everything to do a decision is just like nightmare, and you're dealing with families. It's just the worst possible idea. But the actual craft is something that I enjoy a lot because I think it's creative and I love it. So I definitely learned a lot of that from the past.
And how different is, I guess, the building out a tequila brand, for example, or working with tequila as opposed to some of what all of the other spirits your family's involved in?
Well, every spirit is a world of difference for sure. But definitely the difference between wine and liquor is a huge difference. Because with wine, there's much less loyalty because you want to have an experience. That's the whole point of wine.
Right.
That's why I love wine.
Right.
It's like you kind of know the region, you kind of know this. Oh, I haven't heard about that. Let me try this. Let me try that. It's the whole creating those memories.
Right.
While spirits, it's more about you have your brand to the point of why you need to build a brand.
Right.
Because you have to really relate to that. Right. It represents a little piece of you, which is why there's a lot more loyalty. And therefore, it's a completely different, you're building a completely different business.
How did your role within the company kind of shift as you brought in, different people as it got bigger? How did your role kind of shift into this more of the creative side? I mean, obviously, I'm sure from the beginning it was that, but now you have your CEO and other people involved. Like, how did that process come about?
Well, the moment that we decided that this was going to be bigger than just, a bunch of friends and having their own private label, that kind of thing, I was like, oh, I need someone that can do what they do, so I can do what I think I can only do.
Right.
Right. And I think that is so important in anything we do in business. You have to know what you know, and you have to know what you don't.
Yeah.
And that is so key. And I think a lot of founders, not to judge in anything, first of all, I don't like the title. I don't believe in titles, first of all, but I think this idea of like people holding to like this founder, and I need to be founder, I need to be CEO. Like you can call me Emperor of the World. Like I don't care what
Emperor Diego.
Yeah, like,
sounds nice.
I don't care what you call me. Like it's you have your role, and you do what you do, and you bring value on that is. And if you're not bringing value to other thing, let someone else do that.
I'm curious because, and I really appreciate that idea, because I think it also shows for some people they attribute the label and it's ego.
Yeah.
Right? Like
it defines them.
Right. It defines them.
Yeah.
How did you kind of remove, everybody has an ego to an extent, the ego from it, and because you knew or you hoped that there was a bigger and greater goal?
Well, no, my ego, and it's very, very clear, and you can attest to this, it's on the creative work side.
Right.
So that's where my ego lies. On my ego, on anything else personally, there can't be any ego.
Right.
You can defend an opinion for sure, but that's your ego needs to be in your work. And your ego can be as big as you want, but your work needs to be a little better than your ego.
So how do you find so what is like the work ego, if you will, of the creative side that you have to hold on to? What does that look like, at least when it manifests for you?
So take for us, we launched with a 2.5 minute movie telling the story of the film. Everybody thought I was insane for doing that, for two reasons. One, because no one has the attention span for more than 5 seconds.
I know.
Which is
impressive. You got 2.5 minutes.
So that was right. And the other part is I shot this film, which was a big budget for us, of our marketing budget, in the middle of COVID. So like in the middle of COVID, we shot with LeBron in November, which, October, so, season. And it was 60 people on set, like 4 COVID handlers. Jeez, like it was just, everybody thought it was insane. But I knew in my gut, to your point of the brand, I had to tell the story right. Otherwise, people would make up a story, or I needed that thing to be the core thing of everything we're going to build. So that was the ego. And I went to war on that. I went to war. And like for 2 weeks, I said I was going to cut a 60 second, I was going to cut a 30 second, I was going to cut a 15 second. And for 2 weeks, everyone's like, where's the 30 second? I'm like, it'll happen in 2 weeks. And I sat on it for 2 weeks because so that's the ego. Whether you're right or you're wrong, you have to make that decision and you have to stand by it.
Is there somebody else that, creatively speaking, that you really, other than like the team itself, that you kind of either really work with mostly in terms of kind of, articulating the creative ideas? Or is it mostly like whatever you say happens?
No, definitely not. I think there's certain things I do a lot where I work in a silo with like B, and like we have this like little mission that, because you have to see things, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And if they work, then you go, here it is. And I think this is what we're doing. Right. But obviously Maverick Carter, he's probably my biggest, inspiration or brotherhood in that way, both for Lobos or life in general. But in Lobos, when I have one of those ideas, when I have the next campaign, when it's brewing, or I've worked it with the team, whatever way it's come to be, he is definitely my measuring thermometer, because he gets both angles, the creative side as a storyteller, because that's what he does and that's what Spring Hill is. But he also gets the business side. So if I can argue to him and I get a good response, I know I have something.
What do some of those conversations look like in terms of, utilizing him as not only a friend, but a mentor in both business, personal, just mixing it, and I guess the growth of what's ultimately a leader?
Yeah. Those conversations are very honest. He has the ability to remove emotion out of business, which for someone that is so passionate as me, it's very, very hard. And especially again going back to creative. So like I'm like, but why didn't you get this? Like this is that, you know, I'm like, I'm that guy. I was like, you know, that guy. And he goes, first, he does like an incredible thing. If I do a campaign and we shoot it and I show him the first edit, he'll watch it without music.
Interesting.
With no VO, no, he'll watch it completely mute. And it's actually quite a scary moment because you've invested quite a big budget on this kind of campaign. He's in it, LeBron's in it, Draymond. Yeah, I mean, like you have all these people that you've asked favors because you're not paying them, right? To be in your campaign. Normally they would get paid a ton of money. I've written it, directed it. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like there's a lot of on the line, and he's sitting there on an iPad or that kind of thing, completely in silence. And I'm like, and I because I can hear the song or whatever it is in my head, but he's just there in silence, and then he goes. So a lot of the conversations that he does that ability. So it's just very explain it to me. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Have you thought of this? Have you thought of that?
How have you grown in a lot of ways because you are a leader or one of the big leaders of this company? How do you feel like your leadership has developed over the past couple of years as well?
I think I'm very much still the same guy. I think I have more or a little bit of ability more to see what structure looks like. And I think being able to utilize everyone's talent, and there's so many great talented people in the company, and it does feel like a little bit like a great family. So I think I'm a little better about seeing that and doing that. And also my biggest problem is I'm very great, I'm funny and that kind of thing, but then when I get really serious, people get a real thrown off. Yeah, people are like, because people are like, whoa, where did that come from? I'm like, no, that's always been there, but everything's been working, and now it's not working, so we need to like shut it off and really focus. And I think that's my, I don't know, for good or for bad, that's the way I operate.
So I'm actually, and I haven't really announced this to my listeners, I'm actually in the process of starting my own company now. I can't really talk about it right now, but why I was so excited to have you on as well is because I think that when I'd been to, so that's actually how I met you the first time quickly and was introduced, was I was at one of the events at the Den. And what I really admired, and this goes back to what I was just saying, is, and I'm not saying this because we're on camera, I would tell you off, like you genuinely took the time to talk to everybody at that event, and that really doesn't go unnoticed. And you felt there was like a presence that, you know, and especially, and I can imagine how tired you are, you know, and everybody's asking you questions, you're talking about tequila all day, etc. But I think that going back to that, as I'm in these final stages of actually building out this company that I'm working on, I want to know kind of how you've been able to cultivate this family-like feeling while also being that professional guy who can be serious, maybe scary for a few seconds at a time. Because I think that that's truly how you're going to get the best out of people, and also, you know, really lead by example.
In Lobos, it comes down to share values and morals. It comes down to that. Like in our cases, we all share a similar way of looking at life. You know, you walk in and there's Biggie sounding. You know what I mean? Like and we're all there and it's working, and so we all come from different parts of life. And also, as you grow, that becomes harder because the first choices that you do are instinctual. Meaning, Dia was there. Yes, she's a female African American, but she was the perfect person for the job. But then you want to stand for diversity, and you want to stand for female power, and you want to stand for certain things. So you have to make conscious decisions of doing that. And therefore, if you do that along the way, I think now we're 40-something people across the board. Everyone shares that same value, so everything becomes that much easier. There's at no point on a Saturday, on a Sunday, that a work call comes on, and by work I mean the team, and I'm like, oh. There's no point, because I know I'm connecting on a personal level, So the rest is just kind of easy. It can be a little more frustrating, you know, good, bad, whatever it is. But during that personal level, like I know if their kids are sick, you know what I mean? Like it's just, it's there.
And how have you found to be able to balance the work and the personal, right? Because at the end of the day, everybody that works with you and for you, you know, they have their kids and their kids are sick sometimes and they're maybe going through some relationship issues. Like how do you, and from at least the outside looking in, it seems like you do a really good job of this, of, you know, being the leadership figure, but also being able to have personal friendships at times with the people that you work with.
The people that I work with is because you care.
Right.
You actually give a fuck.
Right.
You know, like it's not, I'm not asking, like, you know, when you write an email and it goes, oh, how are you? Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. That 90% of the time you don't care.
Yeah.
When I talk to I really give a fuck. Like, but it's not because it's just me. It's because we all give a fuck about each other.
Right.
You know, and you just, and that creates that atmosphere. You have to.
And how do you deal when there's doubts or stresses or difficult moments within the growth of a company, or even like sometimes dealing with an employee that has certain requests, right? What is that? Have you developed, you know, over the years being able to handle high stakes moments, stress, doubts? Because obviously, inevitably, they'll creep in at sometimes.
Absolutely, always. For me, it's taking a bite of an elephant, meaning you have to take one bite at a time.
Right.
If you try to solve the whole problem, you're just never gonna get there. It's every decision, doesn't matter how complex it is, it comes down to a yes or no in small bites. So are we doing this? Yes. Okay, so what's next? Are we doing this? Yes. You have to really try to break it down to what the real issue is. And normally, the real issues don't tend to be so complex. What are we doing? And sometimes it calls for hard actions, you know, and it sucks, but it is what it is.
And how, like, at least even on a personal level, are you able to balance work and just being Diego, the human being?
I just don't believe in balancing.
Yeah.
I just don't think there is. Like, for me, there's no, but I don't mean this in like, you have to be a workaholic, that kind of thing. There's no point that I like, oh, I'm going to switch off. Like, I mean, like it just doesn't exist.
Right.
And it shouldn't, in my opinion, it shouldn't exist. I think people need to have their lives, but we live within that life.
Right.
I don't think this idea of like balancing and one thing or another, I think you need to organize yourself, set up and find time for it. Like I need to block an hour of my day to work out because it's like my meditation.
Right.
Go yourself, block that hour.
Right.
Work with your team.
Right.
It's not, whatever you need, go ahead and do it. If it's, you know, if I get a message just like, hey, 911, we need to, then you stop working out and then you know what I mean? Like, so it's this idea of like, no, for the next 4 days I'm off, and I don't believe in that.
Is there something that you wish maybe people would know about you that they don't?
Nothing about me. I think it's important about the company. You know, I think there is this regret about celebrities being attached to products and that kind of thing. And I think there's a lot of trash out there. And I wish we wouldn't put every company that has a celebrity working with in the same bucket. And I think that's the one thing that I wish that people knew about Lobos. Was there ever any hesitation towards, I mean, obviously it's kind of hard to turn down a big person. Nah, LeBron, get out of here. But like, is it... I'm good.
Thanks for all your celebrity and money, but no. But was there ever any doubt though, or questions?
No, because it's either going to work or fail for who we are.
Right.
You know, and we are not maybe Tequila for everyone. You know, we stand for, like I said, diversity and set of morals and set of values. If you don't stand with us, great. There's 1,000 other tequilas. Go and drink that. Because for us, it's we are in the memory making, culture leading business. Right. We happen to keep the lights on with tequila.
Right.
So it's who we are. So it's not. I'm not going to hide the fact that Draymond's also part of it, or you know what I mean. Like I'm not going to hide that. If you like it and you want to join the pack, great. And if you don't,
yeah,
go ahead. You know.
drink that trash Casamigo. Sorry, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But I'm more curious also just on to know more about you on the human side, because I think even in talking to you for 35, 40 minutes now, like I think you're very grounded in values. And I'm curious if you've always been that way, if you were like that as a child. And I was listening to an interview where you were very candid about, growing up and the unfortunate passing of your father early on, and how much that all, is part of who you are today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the only thing we have is our word, our values. I think easy comes, easy goes, and this idea in LA, I spent a lot of time in LA, and LA in general, and I'm generalizing, and please people in LA don't kill me, but there's this mentality of like one meeting will change your life. One audition will, make it or break it. I've never met any successful person, whatever success means to you, that has come from one meeting. I think it was Jennifer Lawrence, when she won the Oscar, she was like, yeah, I'm a rising star that came out of nowhere in the past 15 years. She was a childhood actress. So it's like there's nothing that happens in one day. And by that, this is a long-winded answer to tell you that it's all about little decisions, and your little decisions are made on who you are. So if you are, in my opinion, hopefully a good person, set on values and set on morals and that kind of thing, that will come back, And I'm not one of those persons like, if you really want to desire, it'll happen. If you really want it and desire, you'll work your ass off every day, and then it'll happen. Right. Or a version of it will happen for sure. And it comes down to that. To nothing happens overnight. Everything happens in little bits.
To wrap things up, when you think about, I guess perhaps, and I'm always curious to hear my guests' take on this, your own legacy or the brand's legacy. What do you hope that people take away from not only you as part of it, but also what you've been able to create, which I hope you give yourself a good amount of credit for?
I try. The dream is, so growing up, I still love sneakers. One of the reasons why I love Jordan 1s, I'm actually wearing one pair.
Oh, yeah.
One of the reasons is because when you're a kid growing up, late 80s, 90s, and you saw someone wearing the Jordan 1s, you knew they stood up for certain values, because that's what they stood up. They stood up for diversity, standing up for the man, the whole great 90s things. Right. And that was, for me, such a powerful thing, because you see people on the street and then you give that nod, and that nod means, oh, we don't have to be friends, but we share something more than just a taste on shoes.
Right.
So my dream for Lobos is that one day someone goes to a bar, orders a drink of Lobos, and they have that nod with other person, and they share more than their value on, or the taste in tequila. They know they have a certain values or standards or something that they share, and they don't have to be friends. They just cheers on their way and move on their own way. Yeah, exactly. That's so to the point that is hopefully the legacy that this brand will have.
Well, I want to thank you. I want to thank both of you. My friend Gianna as well, who works for Burke. It's actually her birthday today, so we got to give her a big shout out. She's sick, but I want to give her a big shout out as well. But I want to thank you all for taking the time, because I know you're busy and traveling, and I just, I think that you as an individual are, and I really mean this, like a role model on how to treat others, from a leadership standpoint, from a personal standpoint, it seems, and I'm just rooting for the Lobos brand and everything that you guys stand for. So thank you for taking the time.
And we're rooting for you guys. So congrats. I want to know more about the company whenever you can, and if we can help in any way. And thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram at felix.levine. And if you have something to say, please leave a comment.